I will read, first of all, my statement, then I will get back to you. Following the meeting, Zambia informed South Africa that Mr. Maimane's presence in Zambia was going to be inimical to the sanctity, integrity, and independence of the judiciary in Zambia. During our meeting, we stated that the matter Mr. Maimane wishes to advocate and politicize on is in court, and that it was imperative that the due process of the law was respected without undue pressure or interference. Government was especially concerned with Mr. Maimane's and the DA's media statement prior to his visit to Zambia that stated that his party would pressure our courts of law in Zambia to release Zambia's opposition leader, Mr. Hakainde Hichilema. You are aware that Mr. Hichilema is currently undergoing a treason trial, and Zambia holds it that Mr. Hichilema is legitimately before that court, is legally before that court, is properly before that court. And government was concerned with the allegation that the charges that Mr. Hichilema was facing were trumped up or spurious. Mr. Maimane also had stated in his statement that he would mobilize his sister parties in the region, especially fellow opposition leaders, to come and pressure our courts to ensure that Mr. Hichilema was released. On Tuesday, Mr. Maimane's office got in touch with us, and they informed us that Mr. Maimane will be traveling to Zambia on Thursday. When we contacted Lusaka, especially about the details of Mr. Maimane's visit, we were advised that Mr. Maimane should reschedule his visit because his sole visit was to go and visit his colleague in solidarity, which we found nothing wrong with that, but we had advised him that there are these concerns around his statement and the utterances, especially regarding the sanctity of our courts, that needed to be resolved. We had also advised that he should advise his sister party in Lusaka to get him permission from court, because there's a list which the court approved of people to see Mr. Hichilema. However, we learned yesterday that Mr. Maimane had traveled. Zambia as a sovereign state can determine persons who to allow entry into our country. That's not in dispute. However, we wish to affirm that Zambia continues to have mutual and admirable diplomatic relations and cooperations with South Africa based on the historical, economic, and social ties between the two countries. This is also demonstrated by various factors. Zambia is South Africa's top trading partner, and the volume of movement of our people, goods, and services between the two states is one of the highest in the region. You are aware that, for example, South African Airways takes up to 35 flights into Zambia. That demonstrates the relationship that the two countries have, social, trade, and other ties. We've also seen in the media that our democratic credentials are being questioned. I think the democratic credentials of Zambia and its processes remain admirable in Africa. And the respect of the rule of law is at the heart of our democratic growth. Thank you very much. Yes.
Good morning, sir.
Well, those are live visuals of the Zambian High Commissioner to South Africa, Mr. Annual Mwamba, addressing the media, where the Democratic Alliance Party leader, Mr. Maimane, is also expected to make a key addressing. This is after Mr. Maimane came back to South Africa after being barred from entering Zambia.
Why would the country feel so threatened by an opposition leader from another country coming in to exercise a democratically protected right in that particular country?
I think if you've looked at our judicial prudence, I think, which is similar to the British one. It's not like the one here, where, for example, you allow cameras in courtrooms. Ours is a quite conservative one. And the integrity and sanctity of our courts of law is jealously guarded. We do not allow undue pressure. Not even our Republican president can put pressure on our court. So I think that's one of the hallmarks of our judiciary. Its independence is guaranteed, and justice sacredness is highly respected. So the remarks by Mr. Maimane, where he stated that he wants to pressure the courts to release Mr. Hichilema, how does he pressure the courts, for example? He says he wants to pressure our government to release Mr. Hichilema. Is it government holding Mr. Hichilema? It's not government holding Mr. Hichilema. In our country, no one is above the law. Whoever breaks the law will face the law. And the arrest of Mr. Hichilema does not in any way state that we are sliding into a dictatorship. It's simply a matter of the rule of law, because no one is above the law. Yes.
Just a quick one on confirmation. Have you met with a convoy from the South African government at this point with regards to this issue here in South Africa? Because I understand that there was said that there was setting up a meeting.
I think I said that in my official opening meeting, that I'm coming from a meeting with DECO where they sought advice and information on the matter that occurred yesterday. And we've since given them, I think, adequate information. Our position is very simple, that Mr. Maimane's visit, as an ordinary person, is welcome. But if he wishes to politicize our court process, I think it is very clear that we will not allow our court processes to be politicized.
So does this then mean that Maimane would be allowed into Zambia even after what happened yesterday, if he comes as an ordinary person who just comes to Zambia, who's not coming on the pretense to come and put pressure on the court?
I think we were very concerned with his statement that said he would pressure the courts to release Mr. Hichilema. He had also stated that the charges were trumped up. He had also stated that he will mobilize regional leaders to come and ensure that Mr. Hichilema was released. I think that goes, first of all, to assault the sovereignty of our country, and it undermines the integrity of our rule of law and the judiciary especially.
So will it be allowed to go?
There are 35 flights to Lusaka a week. There has never been any time that a South African national has been caught back. What happened yesterday, if Mr. Maimane, for example, was traveling on a chartered aircraft, it was simply going to be asked to leave. But it was on a commercial flight, and he needed to be separated from other passengers that were welcome in our country.
But you're not answering the question. Would Maimane be allowed into Zambia even after what happened yesterday?
I think he is allowed as a citizen. We respect him. He's an opposition leader in this country. He participates in the democratic process of South Africa. He's well respected. But that goes to the extent only that it doesn't undermine any of our processes as a sovereign country.
Just a comment. Obviously, we've seen in the DA statement that they've said that his removal and his kind of situation when he arrived at the airport was quite heavy-handed, like he was dealt with quite heavy-handedly. What is your response to that? And do you think, if that's the case, that it's appropriate?
I think that's an operation. Operational matters that can be discussed. I don't know. I've heard in his media statement, he's demanding for an explanation, that no explanation was given to him. I think these operations are handed over by sometimes officials that have very limited knowledge. They're just advised to carry out an operation, and they carry it out. So in this case, the advice would come from us as government. And I think prior to Mr. Maimane's visit to Zambia, he had engaged this office, and we had advised him, and we had asked him to reschedule his visit. And he chose to travel.
His cell phone being confiscated, apparently, is that the fact? Will he get it back? What's the...
I'm not privy to the specific matters relating to the operation. But if his phone was confiscated, I can guarantee that I'll personally give it to him.
Just a question of clarity, please. You've dismissed the allegation or suggestion that the charges against this particular individual are trumped up, that it's a legitimate process and that must be respected. For somebody who's not too familiar with this, could you briefly summarize what has this person been charged with?
The police, I think just a summary of the details that are before court, have charged Mr. Hakainde Hichilema, who's our the leader of the opposition party in Zambia, one of the largest opposition parties in Zambia, with treason and other charges. The charges arise from 10th October, according to the matters in court. Although I'm aware the media have been saying because of a matter that occurred in western part of our country, in Mongo, where he obstructed the convoy of the president. But if you look at the details of the police charges, they stem from 10th October 2016. So we are yet to see the details because trial hasn't started yet.
Just a final question for me. When DIRCO released the statement, they described what has happened to Maimane as regrettable. I wonder whether this has been expressed to you as the High Commissioner, that the incident that happened was regrettable, and would you agree that indeed it was regrettable? The question that Mareka asked, for instance, is around Maimane saying that he was mishandled, and you're saying that sometimes officials are just sent out to go carry out a duty. In the manner in which they carried out their duty, if indeed what Maimane is saying is true, do you believe that it is indeed regrettable in how he was handled?
No. First of all, most of the statements around what he's saying is not truthful. He's dramatized the entire matter. He, for example, didn't tell you that he has engaged our office for the last 2 days. He didn't tell you that we had advised him to reschedule his visit. And it's important that I think you balance your stories with what we are saying. And our position is very simple. His own press statement, where he's calling on the courts of law to release Mr. Hakainde Hichilema, and that he was taking such a trip to Zambia to ensure that that was done. His own statement to say he will rally the leaders, his opposition sister parties in the region, to ensure that the Zambian government released Mr. Hichilema. His own statement, saying that Mr. Hichilema's charges are trumped up. That really are careless statements that undermine our judicial system. Government is not holding anyone. When you break the law, it becomes a matter between the state and an individual. It's not President Lungu that has directed that Mr. Hichilema be arrested. President Lungu does not police or supervise court processes or judicial processes. If you break an offense, the police will come after you and will prosecute you for such an offense. The goodness is that there is the court system that weighs in the evidence that is before it and determines one way or another. You're also aware that Mr. Hichilema has already been acquitted by one offense. So if our judicial system stood in ridicule or was being directed, would he be acquitted of any offense?
Does the president at all, was it all involved in Maimane being barred from entering the country?
See him. No, see him on this, in the office. Sorry,
Was the president at all involved? Did the order come from the president when you put through the call to Lusaka to say that Mr. Maimane wants to come to the country? Was the instruction from the president to say that Mr. Maimane will not be allowed inside Zambia?
No, first of all, I didn't even speak to the president. This is not a matter, it's a procedural foreign affairs matter. A foreign national wishes to come to our country and has spoken to us. And after speaking to Lusaka, in a procedural manner, we're advised that Mr. Maimane should reschedule his visit. I think that's the operative word, reschedule his visit. He was never stopped at all. And in our conversation, we led him to these details, that arrange appropriate processes in Lusaka, that you give your solidarity to your comrade in Lusaka. But like I've said, what was regrettable is not how he was handled in South Africa, because I don't have the details, but his own press statement by his office is what is regrettable, because anything that goes to undermine our judicial process cannot be allowed. And many are questioning our democratic credentials. Well, you know our role, our historical role in our country for the last 53 years, our role in the region, our peace, that we've enjoyed the last 53 years, and none of that is threatened. It can be threatened by the police and following the law. How can that be threatened? Then we'll be a lawless society. Thank you. I've been advised that Mr. Maimane is outside to see me. Yeah, so we will. I'll take time to go and see him.
Will you be going outside as well?